Howdy peeps, bit of an impromptu video. This is not the one that I was talking about that I wanted to do. This is, I suppose, a bit of a continuation to the last video that I did. And one of my IRL friends asked me something about the video. And whereas the topic of not PTSD, but I suppose no, yeah, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, came about, and it's just that maybe I hadn't said it clearly, or it was misunderstood. But look, either way, it doesn't really matter. What matters is when I was talking about anxiety, right, and how things affect people. And look, make no mistake about it, I've been in situations which have caused me anxiety, although probably not, maybe I don't know if it's a normal thing or not, but I'll give an example. Some years ago, I was looking to get out of the more physical side of the motor trade. I just had the ump dealing with people, dealing with managers, people not pulling their weight, and all of that. And I'd recently moved, I think it's about 30 mile away from where I worked. So I was having to do a 30 mile each way commute, and that was about 6 days a week. So I thought to myself, you know what, I can't carry on like this, because it affects my mental health. It affects how I interact with others, and generally speaking, it doesn't work too well for me in the long run if I stay in a situation whereas I'm not happy. That in itself will cause me a level of anxiety in itself. But this particular situation that happened, I applied for this job. It was a job that I still had knowledge on because it was motor trade related, and this was at a time when I'd recently got a mortgage with this girl that I'd moved in with, and I'd been in a relationship with her for about 1.5 years, and all was seeming to go quite swimmingly, a little bit too swimmingly, but you know how that is when you know, like I said, when you're sort of dating and you're in a relationship, you know, you're not spending 8 hours a day, 7 days a week with the other person, so you don't really get to see what they are like on a more personal level. And look, that's a two-way street, right? So when it came down to me thinking, right, let's just change your career, right, I had a lot on my plate to think about. You know, if this new job, and look, a lot of people say, oh, well, you know, you're just being pessimistic. You know, you should be more optimistic on your job or your career choice, and you know, you should really look for the silver lining. But here's the reality of how I see it, and how I was seeing it in that situation. In that, when I applied for the job, and they started giving me air quotes training, which in my opinion to this day still stands as being not training me enough sufficiently to be competent in order to do the job. Right, that was the first thing that really bugged me, was not enough training. And then they just wanted to throw me in the deep end, as it were. Now, in some instances I'd say, well, sometimes you've got to throw people in the deep end to make them swim, right? But when you've got a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, when you've got mortgage and bills to pay, and not only that, but in a more basic sense, you're seeing yourself as the protective provider for this, air quotes, ready-made family, right? That's obviously what the situation was. You know, you tend to take things a lot more seriously. And how it affected me, after I did 2 weeks training, 2 weeks, which I wasn't getting involved in the departments that I needed to be. And it just seemed that the company were just so eager to just put another body, as it were, in that space. They don't care about what's going on in your personal life. They don't care about that. It doesn't matter, right? And this is why I kind of have a disagreement with companies like that have this kind of mentality. And look, a lot of managers do have it, and look, I get it. They have to look after their business, but at the same time, what they fail to realise is we as individuals have to look after our own best interests as well. So I got given a start date after my training, a start date and location, which is obviously, you get the same with any job, right? And the night before, I mean, I'd had this gut feeling all along that it's like, this really isn't going to work out. It's like, if I do this, if I try and go for it, there's a higher probability that I will fail and potentially end up losing that job through no real fault of my own, other than lack of training. That would have been it. So in that sort of a sense, it caused a lot of anxiety, and it had a physical effect on me. You know the term, oh yeah, they were shitting themselves over that. Oh yeah, practically. Because I'd walked out of my the I suppose comfort zone, what I was used to doing, and I was going into something which I didn't really think that they were being totally honest with me. They hadn't provided me with enough training, and there wasn't a great deal of paperwork involved in terms of anything that looked like a long-term contract. I mean, even 6 to 12 months would have sufficed, but there was nothing. Which also gave me reason to be suspicious and also very anxious about where that path could potentially lead. I mean, look, in a lot of jobs, you do get your trial period, which can last anywhere between a week to a month. Sometimes you can extend it on to 6 months if they've arranged to pay, made a pay deal with you. They can put you on the extension in order to not give you the money. Now, in one instance, it's sort of like, okay, well, yeah, it kind of does make sense. You want to look after the business. At the same time, it's like, well, is it just being used as a guise for the sake of looking after the business, and they just want to get away with paying as little as possible? You could define that as a form of oppression if you want. It kind of is, I suppose. But anyway, I didn't even make it into the first day because, like I said, I was up all night. It's like real bad gut feeling about it. So I phoned the office up about an hour before I was due to start, and I said to them, look, this isn't going to work for me. I'm not coming in. It's I don't have enough faith in the training that you've provided. It hasn't been sufficient, and I don't have enough faith in my own knowledge, despite the fact that, yeah, I could wing it. And I actually said this to the manager. I said, look, at the end of the day, I said, look, I can come in today and I can wing it. I said, but the thing is, if I start making mistakes, I'm going to be the one that is held accountable for them mistakes, even if there were mistakes that happened due to a lack of training, which you're probably not going to own up to. There was a silence on the phone at that point. I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'm not liking the way this is going. And so the guy was like, well, look, why don't you come in? We'll have a talk about it. I said, look, you haven't given me enough training, and you're throwing me in at the deep end. I said, if I make mistakes, I said, in a worst case scenario, I could end up losing my job within a week. I said, and then I'll have big problems. I said, I've got responsibilities. I've got things I need to take care of, bills. And so there was a lot of disappointment from the other guy, because he really wanted me to come and be a part of the team, and because he knew that I was bringing quite a lot to the table in terms of the knowledge that I have on a lot of the sort of topics, a lot of sort of items that they sell. but I wasn't comfortable with the way everything was sort of like very easy and free flowing, and like I said, not enough training. It was just like a holiday camp that no one was taking seriously. So that is a good definition of anxiety, right? But it's not going to cause you PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. Or at least it's not going to cause it for me. For some people it might, right? Because this is a very subjective thing, and I get it. People are affected differently by different scenarios that happen in their life. Often enough I wonder what the hell is wrong with me, and other times I'm wondering what the hell is wrong with everyone else. But it kind of is what it is. But in the sense where, digressing back to anxiety and PTSD, in terms of a romantic relationship or even a friendship, in whereas you're constantly walking on eggshells and you're legitimately worried that the next thing that comes out of your mouth is somehow going to be used against you, no matter how innocent it was. And then that in itself gets you to doubt your very self. And look, regarding, and I do sort of find it, especially with the last video that I did, where they're talking about borderlines and how they go for dialectal therapy and all of this. Make no mistake, all it teaches them is how to use everything that you say against you. They will twist it in their mind and then try and convince you that that is what you mean, when you know full well that it isn't. That's what they do. Now that in itself causes anxiety, and being in a relationship with someone like that for any given period of time is also, you're going to have the potential for CPTSD, chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. And whereas not only will you constantly be second guessing yourself, which is all part of their game and bullshittery, by the way, make no mistake about it. They know what they're doing. In that sense, they're not stupid, right? In that sense, I wouldn't say it's a clever thing to do, because it's like if you're the type of person that you say what you mean and you mean what you say, and you're having to constantly repeat yourself to this other person as to what you mean, and this is something that I did with this woman that had openly told me that she had BPD, borderline personality disorder. And whereas she was literally trying to convince me that I had wrong think and I had wrong speak. And it didn't matter how much I was trying and explain to her what I meant, it didn't matter. Right? Because it didn't suit her. It's like, no. This is a typical trait of borderline. Fuck you. You don't mean what you mean. You don't know what you mean. I know what you mean, and I'm telling you that it is this. That is their thought pattern. Right? And so I said to her, this is probably one of the funniest things I suppose I've done with someone that's been so open, I suppose, about having borderline personality. I said to her, well, look, one of the things that really fascinates me about borderlines is the fact that they are retarded. There was a definite silence in the room at that moment when that one came out. And the glance I got, and I was sort of like, yeah, that pressed a button, didn't it, bitch? You like that one? Well, she didn't. She says, well, what do you mean? I said, well, when you look at things, borderlines and narcissists are the actual definition of retardation. And whereas they are actually that stupid or retarded, choose whichever word you want, or you can use many others, they're stupid or retarded enough to try and convince someone else of what they are thinking and what they mean when they say something. Another way of translating that is to a more common phrase is gaslighting. The point being is when you spend a great deal of time in relationship with someone and you've had that type of gaslighting going on, it does make you come away with PTSD, or in some cases CPTSD. And a lot of the time, I'm not too sure how well people get over it now. I'll be honest, for me, it made me a harsher person. I have less mercy for these people with these personality disorders. It's made me colder towards them because I know what they do. I know how they act, and I know the types of tricks and games that they will try and play, and then somehow still they want to be the victim, or they want to be the innocent one in all of their fuckery. And it's like, no, they're not innocent in the slightest. A lot of the time they are the aggressors. They are the ones that start the problem that probably shouldn't have been a thing in the first place. But being in a relationship, whether it's a friendship or intimate with these people, will cause you to have a level of post-traumatic stress disorder, because it is stress on the brain. It is stress on how your mind works, and a lot of the time these things, when the mind and the body, you know, I don't know what anyone thinks of the whole holistical side of things, of mind, body, soul, spirit, the chakras and all that. So I'm not even going to go into all of that in great deal, because I don't need to. A lot of the time it's quite self-explanatory. Things that happen to you on a daily basis that affect your mind, a lot of the time will show itself as a physical symptom with your body. In the terms of, say, eczema, for argument's sake, or even psoriasis. And whereas stressful situations, or being in a stressful situation, can cause these symptoms to flare up on a physical scale within the body, or in this case on the surface of the skin. And again, because it is such a difficult sort of thing, I mean, you could argue this one, right? Being in the motor trade. Being in the motor trade, you're working with chemicals a lot of the time with your hands, and even though you can use disposable gloves and so on, they don't always cut the mustard, and you can always end up with like chapped skin, dry skin, red patches on your hands where you've had contact with a chemical or something like that, and then it reacts, it goes away, and then it may or may not come back as a form of eczema or psoriasis, whatever the case may be. But this is just it, you know, and that is a sort of link. Whereas when your mind can no longer take the BS that you have going on with this other individual, or individuals in the case of many, that is how things escalate on more of a physical level within the body. I think it's something that I don't think it gets spoken about a great deal, or maybe I just haven't looked hard enough. There's a potential for that, because I don't want to discredit anything that might well be out there and I just haven't found it, mostly through lack of looking. I have done some research, but not a great deal. I've had other virology studies that I've had a lot more interest in recently, over the last year and a half. Funny that. But anyway, so yeah, once you've been in constant engagement with these people, you can come away having a form of PTSD, and that in itself comes in many different ways, shapes and forms. You know, you might find yourself not being quite as open and willing to participate in social activities, for instance. It makes you more of an introvert. I would argue for that one. It can make you more introverted. With me, one of the things that I tell people a lot of the time now is that I don't like people, because I don't. It's not that they've done anything bad to me, and it's not that they're necessarily bad people. It's a lot of the time, I suppose it causes me a level of, I suppose, anxiety, but not in the same sort of anxiety that affects others. And whereas when it comes to meeting new people, it's like I'm having to try and figure them out. Are they a genuine person? Or is this someone that's going to, I don't know, walk with a limp and then pretend that there's something wrong with them and then do a somersault? There was an actor that actually did that on the wanting to take on a particular role, Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, if you must know, but how true that is I don't actually know, but I thought it was a good example because the thing is, people put on these acts and these fronts, and there's so many people out there that have this, what I will call, undiagnosed personality disorder of some description. And that is, you know, so you could sort of argue, well, and again, it's not that I get an anxiety of, oh my God, it's all these people. I'm like, how many of these are fucking idiots? You know, I'm quite, I'm my own worst enemy, and I know it like that, you know. Because again, I've met some of the most, in my personal sort of social groups, some of the most intelligent people, you know, they're way out there. And at the same time, they're the dumbest. You know, they have all this potential that they could unlock and, you know, be so much better than what they are, but for some reason they won't. And then there's the other side, like I said, with more to do with the sort of personality disorder, whereas they put on this facade of who they want you to think they are, when in reality they're not that person at all. So that, you know, it's, and like I say, it doesn't, understanding, because I mean the thing is, especially nowadays, everything is like, oh, anxiety this, oh but my anxieties, I had to go to the shop and that flared up my anxiety. It's like, for me it doesn't flare up an anxiety. I'm just thinking, I have to deal with people, which I don't really like doing, and it's like, I know that they're not all bad, they're not all out to get me. I know that's not the case, right? Unfortunately, I've seen it so many times where people open their mouth and stupid comes out, and it's just sort of like, I can't believe we're on the same fucking planet, sharing the same air, and really? So I tend to keep more of myself to myself when I'm out and about. It's like, you know, this is why if I do go shopping, it's like, I want to go there, get what I want and get out ASAP. I've got no time for any interactions or niceties. It's like, no, I don't want to be here in the first place, because I know full well that at some point someone is going to say something that's going to make me seriously question as to whether the human race is actually going to evolve or devolve. And from what I've seen a lot of the time, I think that for the most part it's devolving, and I also think that's maybe being done on purpose as well, but might be another video for another time. But the sort of point in all of this is, PTSD and anxiety and CPTSD all come in very different ways, shapes and forms. And sure, I used anxiety as the examples I used of like the D-Day landings, or jumping out of a plane and landing in enemy territory where you don't speak the language, you're on your own, you don't know where the hell anyone else is that is on your team. That to me is a lot more of a valid point towards having a form of anxiety, rather than these other people that get themselves all worked up about having to go to the shop. But that being said, you know, because I'm not blissfully unaware of everyone's situations in life. I've got family members who they are literal agoraphobic. They can't deal with crowds. It's to do with autism. But that's a different kettle of fish altogether. But I think, sadly, as far as the cluster B is concerned, they have thrown him in that one as well. But I do kind of find it sort of interesting. I suppose, like I was sort of saying before, I am definitely under the impression that there are probably a lot more women out there that have this borderline personality disorder, high anxiety, usually high neuroticism as well. You know, highly neurotic, and it's like, you know, let's be real. You can't have a decent relationship with these people because you don't know when the next drama is going to happen, what it's going to be about, and is it really worth losing any sleep over? A lot of the time it's not, but they'll make it so. just a lot of these women, they will just make it so because, fuck knows, it's just drama, and that's what they lap up, right? So, but yeah, just a couple of things I wanted to talk about in this one. I know it's another 25-minute one, so sorry about that. I was going to try and keep it relatively short, but the thing is, on these topics, there is literally so much to talk about, and this is something that I have been criticised about previously, funnily enough, by a borderline. And whereas, oh, why do you have to dart off into all these different directions? It's like, well, because they're all fucking relevant. You know, again, it's they want that black or white vision, like one or the other. It's like, no, you can't, because there's the in the middle bit as well, you know. But they don't want to acknowledge that, because it's the retardation that goes on in their head isn't able to differentiate between the two. So, anyway, that's all I've got for this one. So, thoughts, comments and opinions, feel free to jot them down as always. Hope you're enjoying the weather. If you're over here in the UK, it's been okay so far. So until the next one, stay cool, stay free, and peace out.